And that moment was waking up in the morning, crying.
Welcome to an episode of Find Your Voice, a movement led by yours truly, Aaron Dew, a guy who has overcome crippling anxiety, adversity, and difficulty like so many of you in life, whose main goal now is to help you combat your excuses, take control of your life, write your own story, and most importantly, find your voice. So now, without further ado, I welcome the host of the show himself, Mr. Aaron Dew.
What's going on, everyone? Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Find Your Voice. My name is Aaron, and as always, I am the host of the show. So today I'm delighted to have a fellow podcaster who's got an incredible story that I think you're all going to enjoy. But alongside podcasting, he's also a father, a husband, a business owner as well. So I'm really excited for this one because we actually had a fascinating conversation, and I normally shy away from being on other people's podcasts as I prefer asking about other people's lives rather than talking about my own. And I suppose we all kind of fall guilty of that in terms of we think our story is mundane or it's boring or it doesn't matter. But what I realized in that conversation was, well, like I always preach to you guys, everyone's story matters. And one of the stories I want to get on this show is our guest today. So I'm very delighted to have Bhavik on today's show. How are we doing today?
Yeah, not bad, thank you.
Good stuff. So let's jump over to our guest today. Bhavik, tell us a little bit about yourself. What brings you to the show today? The kind of stuff that you're doing and how your life has transitioned, because I know there's been a huge transition, especially in the later years that you mentioned when we last spoke.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. First of all, thank you for having me on.
Very welcome.
Like you said, I'm used to being on the other side of this, asking the questions. So it's quite interesting being on the receiving end, if you say. So my background is I went through the education route, traditional. So did a degree, did a master's, worked in London for 6 months, and then realized that either I'm unemployable or I just don't like working for people. I didn't like the politics. I didn't like the way organizations are set up, that it's not about how you work or how hard you work. It's about who you know and playing that political game. And I just wasn't up for it. So after about 6 months, I left and I set up my own business. So I'm from Leicester. That's my hometown. So I went back to Leicester and in those days, so now this might be a late alien for some of your listeners, depending on how old they are. When I came back to Leicester, this was 20 years ago, I found a shop. So I wanted to set up a business. There was no Google, there was no Facebook, there was no Instagram. So this was traditional. Found a shop and opened sort of on a women in prayer. I had an interest in gadgets and technology. So Sky, as in Sky Digital, were just launching in the UK at that point. So I said, okay, let me just set up a little business to sell Sky. So opened a shop, and then with £500 in my pocket, it was just a case of, okay, let me invest this in myself and let me see what happens here. Opened that business and sort of went from there. I had quite an interesting first day. So when I actually opened the business, as an entrepreneur, you have a big idea about, this is going to happen and this can happen, this can happen, this can happen. Then eventually, you can dominate and rule the world. Now, on my first day, I had my first customer come in. So 15 minutes after I opened the door, a customer walked in and says, yeah, I'm interested in Sky. Can I sign up? And I go, yeah, fine. Okay, sign him up. And I said, okay, fine. So we'll get your card ordered. And then when you get your card, ring us and then we'll come and install the system. Now, most people know that with Sky, it's a dish that goes outside your house, right? So he got his card. Then I thought, as soon as he left, I thought, hold on, who's going to install this dish for him? Because I'm not, at that point, I wasn't a lad getting up a ladder with a drill, etc. I was supposed to sit in a shop and dominate the world through this sort of shop. And I literally sat there and I thought, this business actually has to now end, because no one's actually who's going to go and install a dish? And it's funny how I didn't even see that as a hurdle before I started. So I hadn't planned that and I hadn't built that in. And about 10 minutes into just sitting there and thinking, because there was no, like I said, there's no Google to go onto to try and find installers and things. A van pulled up outside the shop and he said, oh, you've just opened today? I said, yeah, I've just opened today. He goes, I'm a satellite installer. I just live down the road and I'm not that busy. So if you need any help on installations, I can do that. And being a true businessman, I said, no. I've got plenty of installers. Don't worry about that. But what I'll do is I'll take your card. And then if I do need your help, I'll give you a call. And he goes, yeah, I'm not that busy. I'm just live down the road. I can come anytime. And whenever you're ready, I said, okay, perfect. And then he left. And it was almost like I looked up and I said, thank you. And I was saying thank you to the universe or God or whatever, whichever way you look at things. But it's funny how when things are meant to carry on, something will come in to help you. And when things are not meant to carry on, as in you can try and nothing happens, or you can sit back and everything happens. And that's the way I judge a lot of my life now, in terms of if things are meant to happen, they will. And if they're not meant to, let it go, because there is a bigger plan for you. There's a bigger picture. And I believe in the faith of letting the universe decide for me, as opposed to really getting upset or hurt about things that didn't happen. So from that sort of humble beginning, I set up that business, and that grew. Took on my first employee, and that was a huge deal for me. And then from there, the building I was in was renting. Next door came up for sale, so I bought that building. From that, I got married. And then from getting married, I decided to venture into a different type of business. So that's home entertainment technology. I opened the first Pizza Hut delivery in Leicester, which is, again, random skew, but I think that's how us entrepreneurs think. We just have a different skew thinking, which doesn't really make sense, but to us it does. So yeah, I was set up Pizza Hut. I had this business, this grew, and they both grew. So I bought another outlet for this shop, went online, and then set it all up. So at one point, about 10 years ago, I had like 55 staff running two businesses. And from the veneer of life, everything was, fantastic. Married, had my daughter then as well, a big house, a nice car, etc. So that was the veneer of the entrepreneur, the great life. But behind that, I was broke and broken. Juggling all these balls started getting on top of me. And everyone knows about 10 years ago, if people don't know, there was a financial crisis. So, things that happened in America, things that happened in the UK slowed down the economy and caused a lot of fear, especially financially. And I didn't see this coming. I had the progress of growth. And I never saw this coming. That happened so quickly that we as a person and as a business, we'd over leveraged. So we'd borrowed so much money. And now the business was slowing down. So sales weren't coming in as fast, but they were going out the back just as quick. So I had a lot of wages to pay. I had a lot of overheads and a lot of costs. And as a really weak and poor entrepreneur, I didn't really know my numbers. I just knew it was coming in so fast that I didn't have to worry about the backside of it. And then this led to some real deep and dark moments. So I just thought, let me just work harder. Let me just work harder to make this, to try and keep this train running. And then I realized that you get to a point where you can't work harder anymore. There's a mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, I was broken at that point. And I woke up one morning and I said to my wife, I can't do this anymore. And she said, what? I said, life. I can't wear this mask anymore. I can't live like this. I was absolutely worn out. And she said something quite profound to me at that moment. I'm so glad that she did. Rather than sort of consoling me, because she knows consoling me doesn't work, she said, your life that you've created, you've chosen all that. It was your choice. And no one's made you do it, you've chosen. And now it's just time to choose again. So rather than thinking that you have to go down this route, what do you want? And how do you want your life to be? And start moving in that direction. And at that moment was a realization that I had to just let go of the control which I thought I needed to make everything, move in the way I wanted, and actually start focusing on myself. So when I say focus on myself, I started training, I started running, and this was obviously a slow process, and I am writing a book at the moment, so hopefully I can go into this a little bit more detail later. But it was learning about myself. So physically, I needed to start moving. filling my body with nutritious, so understanding nutrition was another thing I had to do. Mentally, I started going to the Buddhist center for meditation. I started taking time out for myself. And then what funnily happened is the more I invested and more I invested in myself, another thing I did was I see the universe. Whatever I don't need, just take from me. I don't care anymore. Whatever I don't need, leave, and just leave me with the things I need, and that's it. And the funny thing was, over the last 10 years, all that's happened is that I've just grown physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally to be the strongest I am today. And everything that outside of me in terms of the business, all those things, the debts, at that point I had, including mortgages, I had over £800,000 debt, including the business debt. And that was really weighing on me. And then when I let it go, things just happened. Things slowed down as they're meant to slow down. Money came in as it's meant to come in. Because I almost didn't focus on it anymore. I just focused on myself to be the strongest I can. Because I wasn't being the strongest I could be, I wasn't being the strongest for anyone around me. And everyone knew that I wasn't in a good place. So fast forward to today, I am now in such a good place, and there's so many new things that I want to start. And it's then being being with Aaron. I've heard a lot of things that Aaron has said about his life, and I know for me is the future looks so bright that I know I'm 44 years old, and I know I'm not even halfway through my life yet, and that excites me. I'm living over 100 because I know if I feel the strongest I have today over even when I was 20 and 30. And if I feel like this now, there's a long road ahead. Unless, the university decides they need me somewhere else, that's fine. But there is a long road ahead, and I'm excited. I truly am excited to try and help, support, and motivate and inspire other people to not give up and just carry on.
I love that, and I can feel your excitement.
Sorry, that was very long-winded.
No, it was absolutely it was absolutely fine. I think I love that introduction, and I think there's a lot of stuff that we talk about on the show, such as self-awareness and even that excitement. And I think that excitement stems from actually what your wife said. Thank you for sharing that, because one of the things we need to recognize is that we are the navigators of our ship effectively, and we choose all the things that are happening. So we almost have to be brave enough and have enough courage to say, well, I am where I am because of most likely the decisions I've been making and my habits on a daily basis. Now, I understand that sometimes you get external influences which kind of navigate your ship for you, i.e. you should become this, you should become that. And this is one of the things I try and find your voice. It's about, we have to stop that. We almost have to let it go through one ear and out the other, because we need to now find our voice. And what I mean by finding our voice, it's not necessarily starting a podcast. It's, who are you? Like, what are the things that make you tick? And maybe what made you tick 10 years ago doesn't necessarily make you tick today. Yeah. And these are the important questions that they sound really simple as they're coming out of my mouth, but we rarely sit down and have them. And I'm just so grateful to have somebody like yourself come on and share the story and be so honest. I mean, I was writing a few notes as you were saying that, and you were pretty brutal on yourself in terms of saying you were a weak entrepreneur. You were doing the thing that, I laugh about this because most guys, it's like when somebody asks us for directions, it's like, even if we don't know it, we'll just make it up. And how you said to that guy who came at a pivotal point in your career, and you were like, yeah, it's okay, I know quite a few people, but what you did do was a smart move and take his card. So there's a lot of similarities there that I'm sure many people can understand. But what I want to do is I want to ask you just a few random questions that just came in my head for the listeners, but then I want to go into when you were broke and the healing process, because I think there's going to be so much value from that, because a lot of people are broken and sometimes we're not even noticing the effects of mental burnout or physical burnout, for example. But I've got two questions because I'm just really curious about it, if I may. So what I love is, it's almost like an underdog story. You started with £500, there's no Google. And I remember these days slightly. So all my information I used to get off Encarta CDs, which used to cost a lot of money. I remember Encarta. And if it's not an Encarta, you're not going to find out the answer. And I remember I used to have to get bootleg ones as well because my parents couldn't afford to buy the real ones. And that was literally our Google. So when you're searching in the contents page, if that doesn't come up, when it comes to your homework, you got to make something up. You got to get imaginative. So do you think it's possible to start a business with £500 now? Do you think it's easier now? And have you got any tips or recommendations for somebody who may not have a lot of cash, but thinking, well, I want to start something. I want to learn. I want to one day be able to control my own life. I want to write my own story. Any tips for anyone now?
I think starting business these days is even easier. And what I mean by that, it's harder and easier at the same time. So let me explain that. when I started my business, you needed money because you needed a premises or you need somewhere to operate generally. Unless you were doing some kind of call center or telephone service, you needed somewhere to operate. So a premises was like a website. So having a shop was like a website, especially on a high street. It was like a premium website because you had a lot of footfall coming by. For that, obviously, you need to negotiate rent and then you have a rental agreement, etc. Right? So now, if I want to start up a business, I can do that today. I can go on social media, just call myself or set something up or drop ship, and you find drop shipping business, etc. Right? Now, if someone wants to set something up, the first thing I say is why? Why do you want to do it? Because why is so important. I think when you're young, you get caught up in the money trap. And what I mean by that is it's going to earn me money. And or it's like you equate it to a job. So with a job, you give your time and they give you money. And that's essentially what a job is. But with a business, it's what value can you create for the market? And that value you create for the market is then substantiated by the money that people give you for whether it be a product, whether it be service, whatever it is. Now, if someone wants to set something up today, what I would say is, first of all, find something you enjoy. And like we were talking earlier about something that makes you happy, because if the motivation is making money, what will happen is there will be 100% times when you're not making any money. You might even be making a loss to try and sort of build yourself up. Now, if your motivation is to make money, that means that your energy will go at that moment because it's not doing what it's meant to do. Now, if you're doing something because you enjoy it, maybe you're curious about it, or maybe it's just something that you want to venture into and see how it happens, that is almost going to keep you going because that's the energy, it's the passion that keeps you moving forward, and that's a rocket in your fuel. So that's a fuel that rockets, charges you forward. Now, if someone said, I've got a business idea, but I don't know how to start, or I don't know, which way to move it forward or what to do, the first thing I would say is find one person. Just find one person, whether it be a product or a service, find one person that you think it can help. Or have you encountered a problem from someone else that you can help them with? And if you can, help them, whether you're getting paid or not, because you may get paid later or you may be paid by something else. But money is not always the metric you want to use. Sometimes it's experience, sometimes it's just being in the company of someone else who can then refer you to someone else. So money is not always a metric, but if you are going to get paid for it, that's essentially the start of business. How can I help someone and how do they repay me? So it's a sort of like an energy transfer. And that, in effect, is a business. So, for example, a lot of young people know about social media. They know about mobile phones. They know a lot about technology. A lot of older people don't. So for example, I have my own business. If a young person approached me and said, okay, I see your business, I see what it's doing, and what I can do for you is design this, I seen your website, but on socials, you're not doing so much. So what I'll do is I'll knock you up a little social page. I'll contact you every week and see is there any updates you can do, and I'll update them for you, and I'll charge you £20 a month or whatever, the fee is. I would take that on because as an entrepreneur, I don't have much time and I choose to use my time in certain ways. So if someone's going to take that burden off me, but you need someone proactive and forward thinking to do that. It's like I was saying to my daughter, if you can, so I told her, no one would want to be my kids. Okay, I'll tell you that now because nothing is straightforward with me. So she said to me, "Oh, Daddy, I want to go on a skiing trip." I said, "Perfect, you go, no problem at all." She goes, "Oh, it's going to cost £1,100 to go to Austria for a week." I go, "Perfect, go." And she goes, "Oh, is that it?" I said, "Yeah," but I said, "How are you going to pay for it?" And she's like, and she's 14. She was 13, by the way. Just so you know, right? And I said, "How are you going to pay for it?" And she looked at me as if, "Well, you're going to pay for it." I said, "Well, if you want to pay for something, out there," I said, "First of all, pitch me. Tell me why you want to go. I want to see a report. I want to see a case study why you want to go first." So she wrote, and then I said, "Pitch me like," I said, "We watch Dragon's Den. I'm the dragon. You're the investor. You want me to invest in you. So, okay, fine." So she wrote a report, and because I wanted her to think about it, not just say I want to go because my friends are going there. And then she came back to me and she goes, "Oh, okay, here's my report." I said, "Okay, fine. So now so how are you going to pay for this now? So I'll invest in you, but you have to transfer time while you invest." So I say, here's the chores list. This is what it's going to be worth. You add that up. And then we'll pay for it. And one of those things is, I say, if you want to get quicker, think about how you can help other people around you here. So she goes, oh, Daddy, can you teach me eBay? I said, I'll teach you eBay. It's fine. So she learned, and she goes, oh, can I sell some stuff? I said, sell. And I said, whatever you make, we'll go halves. She goes, why can't I have it all? I said, because it's my stuff, so we're going halves. We're not. And I said, because you're not negotiating. That's not great negotiation, so we'll stick it up. Then she goes, okay, I'm going to do this. So she literally got a piece of paper. 6 times she wrote, hi, I'm Kaya, I'm your neighbor. I've just learned eBay. So if there's anything you want me to sell for you, I'll come, take the pictures, post it, and then we'll go half on whatever we make. 3 neighbors said, fine, can you come and look in my garage and see what you can sell? And she came and she sold it. And about a month later, she'd already raised that money that she needed for the trip. And this is the thing. I'm saying my daughter's 13 years old. It's just thinking outside the box. How can you help someone else? And what skills and, what do you have that I can spend you on? That's it. That's all a business is. And then it sort of scales and grows.
I love that. I absolutely love that example. And I think the last few words you just said there about thinking is the most important and overlooked thing that we ever do. So even in society, even at school, we're actually taught what to think and how to think. We're not actually taught to think. And there's a fantastic book, if anyone's interested, called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. And it's one of the most fascinating books because it was actually banned when it first came out and it wasn't allowed to be released. And then I think the Napoleon Hill state released it later on. And it explains one of the problems with society and the way society is constructed, and especially about the school and educational system. Now, what I love about that, first when you were speaking about it, I was thinking, Bhavik, you're not helping us Indians here. You're giving us a bad reputation by by saying to your daughter at 13, how are you going to do it? But then I was like, this is such an important lesson because...
So, if you're committed to not only enhancing your mental health, but also your physical well-being too, then you need to check out our new sponsors, Health Excel. Providing you the best superfood blends on the market in their non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, and of course organic formulas. They bring you superfoods like no others you have seen on the market. They also don't just stop there, as they provide you free consistent information to educate and empower you on your overall health and well-being journey. So don't just stop at the end of a Find Your Voice episode. Get yourself some XL blends and put the odds in your flavour. Once it goes live, there will also be a unique discount for anyone who comes from the Find Your Voice podcast, as you guys are now part of my family and I only want to see you thrive even more. So check out the links in the description below and get notified as soon as they go live. Back to the episode.
Like, this is such an important lesson because she's learning to negotiate. She's learning to think, which is, again, the number one thing. She's learning entrepreneurial skills. She's then getting the courage to go and knock on somebody's door, i.e. cold calling. Such a fantastic skill to be ready for a rejection, but still do it anyway. And then she was able to save it. Now, somebody with those life skills so early on, that's exciting. That's very, very exciting. It's something that I think many people should think about. I feel we're in a society now where we've become very lazy. And what I mean by becoming lazy is if we need something, you can instantly find it on Google. So then what that means is it opens up a pathway for gurus and cause people to say, hey, I have the blueprint, come and buy my product. And then you're almost buying this product, you're not succeeding, and you're thinking, why haven't I succeeded? Well, 99% of that stuff is regurgitated information you can find for free. And 2, nobody's actually going to hold your hand through life. And the difficult stuff that we have to go through and persevere and overcome in order to find who we truly are, we have to do that ourselves. And as much as your words of wisdom or the guests that I have on this show, as much as I keep banging the drum in terms of how we can truly be happy, because happiness is the key. I think happiness is the goal. You have to do the work yourself. So I'm just, that story for me is awesome. And I think that's such a great lesson, especially hopefully one day when I'm a father. I think that's how I've got to look at it, to make them think rather than giving them all the answers. Because I think that's when you start seeing, hold on a minute, my child has so many different gifts in so many different areas and she can do amazing things. And then I just wanted to jump back ever so slightly to the happiness part. So I think you probably realize this now, as you said, you're 44 now, but there was a time when prior to that, you were probably chasing the wrong things and not recognizing what was actually really, really important. And this is definitely an underlying theme of Find Your Voice. It's about what makes you happy. And it does actually lead me on to your podcast. So your podcast is called Bigger Than the Hustle Podcast. Now, you've explained obviously in this story that you've been through the hustling side, and then you realize obviously there's something different. There's something else in your life. Could you maybe give the audience a little bit about why you came up with that name and what it actually means in relation to yourself and the story?
Yeah. So we talked about the veneer. We talked about the being an entrepreneur, right? So from what I understand and all the people that surround me in my journey in entrepreneurship. So like I said, I've been in this game 20 years plus. And what I've been surrounded by is fantastic people, amazing people. And a business is just one facet of that amazing life that they have, right? So when you understand someone's thought processes or thinkings or how they live their lives and the actions they live their lives by, you understand how they're a success in their business. And this is the things that I want to tap into in my podcast. So in terms of talking to someone, not just about business, but about life, but what do they do outside of their business in their lives? Because that then I see permeate through their business. Now, what's really important for me is people and people. That's, the human connection. And even though you may have the veneer of a business to sort of hide behind, or you may have the veneer of the business to be your placard to show success, the success is really the person you've become on that journey, and the person you continue to be and continue to grow into by being on that journey. Because there's going to be testing times. There's going to be times when you're low. There's going to be times when you're high. There's times when you're excited. There's times when you wonder why you ever started. There's times where you think, why does my brain just not stop thinking for a minute and let me rest, right? So these are all the facets of an entrepreneur. We talked about getting into business earlier. And another thing I would say to someone young is, if you want your 9 to 5, where at 5 o'clock you switch off and then you start again at 9 o'clock, don't become an entrepreneur, because an entrepreneur's brain never switches off. It's almost like a trained process that even though I want it to, just now I'm better at it, but especially when you first start, you're so filled with just wanting to make a difference or wanting to start a business or move in that direction that you literally do not switch off. And if you're not ready for that, so if you're a public sector corporate worker and you're used to your 9 to 5 and your weekends off, and suddenly you move into entrepreneurship, that's the first thing I'd say. If you're ready for that, do it. If you're not ready for that, then slowly do it a different way or build it the way that you want to, because your brain will never switch off. Now, with the people side of it, I've really enjoyed conversations, and those conversations I've wanted to bring to light. So even listening to stuff that you've done, Aaron, that's why I invited you on originally, because I like hearing from authentic honesty, because authenticity is almost a metric that seems to be missing in this social world. And what I mean by that is everyone wants to have the veneer of a fantastic life. But to me, a fantastic life is an honest life. An honest life where you don't have to create a hole of, digging yourself a hole to say this is what a perfect life is. But behind that, all you're doing is just digging and digging and digging. You're never actually really enjoying anything. And I've learned that going through the process where I've been broken, I've been naked, and I've been lying on the floor completely low to a point where I am now, my opinion of myself is higher than anyone's opinion of me. And I don't mean that in like a boastful way. It just means that I will continue to go down my path irrespective of anyone's thoughts and process behind it. Now, if I can help people, that's cool. And if I don't, I will piss people off, and that's cool as well, whichever way it is, because I know the journey that I'm here, that I'm being put on, I had to go through that process. I had to go through that ego stripping process, that when I've come out the other side, there's so much more value in my life now. And that's what I'm trying to sort of portray through the conversations that I have. And I call them conversations because I don't like this Q&A sessions as well. I like to have a conversation just to talk about things, not just business, but about life as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. So again, you've given me another 30 questions I want to ask you. So firstly, I just want to recap about the whole person that you become, because there was a quote, I don't know the quote off the top of my head now, but it was about, it's not about becoming a millionaire. It's about the person that you become when you are a millionaire. And I remember when I heard that, I think 7 or 8 years ago, and it made no sense to me. And I was thinking, forget that. I just want to become a millionaire, and then I'll become the person worthy of it. And it's only through going through the entrepreneurial space and learning and failing almost every day to then reframe the word fail to a lesson, and then an obstacle as a challenge, and almost kind of negotiating with your mind to keep yourself going in order to persevere, that I recognize that If I had £1 million, for example, 7 years ago, my God, I'd be reckless and I probably wouldn't have it today. Also, if I had, for example, started a business and I had an influx of loads of people coming on the site and fulfilling orders and stuff, that would make me so overwhelmed and anxious. And I wasn't ready for that then. And what I'm realizing through my own process, especially through the property and the side business I'm starting with my wife now, is every day I find myself building something, building character, building resilience, building something that when that day does come, I'll be better prepared for it. So now in my mind, it's not necessarily I need to achieve £1 million. It's actually, no, I need to become worthy that should that day ever come and £1 million of sales come in, am I then ready and well prepared? And I think this is something that we can only do through habit, we can only do through experience and really putting ourselves out there. And it kind of brings me on to the next point, which I think is fantastic. And I love that you shared it, is that your opinion of yourself is higher than anyone else's opinion of you. And everyone's opinion of themselves should be higher than anyone's opinion of them. The problem is we allow opinions of strangers, complete strangers on social media to dictate who we are or to mess up the next hour of our lives. You get trolls and negative stuff. And I truly believe this, and this has been an exercise I've been doing, is that if there's a disconnect there, and if you're struggling to have that high opinion of yourself, you need to do some work on yourself. And what I mean by that is you need to look at, are you the person that you're telling the world that you are? And it comes down to congruency and integrity and stuff. So for me, I'm exactly the same as you. My opinion on myself is far better than somebody else writing me a comment saying you're X, Y, because I'm like, that doesn't mean nothing, because the only person I have to answer to is myself when I go to sleep at night. Have I been the person that I put myself out to be? Am I that person? Have I said on the night, I'm going to wake up in the morning, I'm going to exercise, I'm going to ring my mom, I'm going to be good to my wife, I'm going to be the best friend I can possibly be, I'm going to try and help people, and then have I done that? And that's all that, these are the little things that matter. And I think sometimes we have to go back to our habits and strip it back and think, well, this isn't serving me. This isn't who I want to be. And I recognize this. And I had to really hone in on, I need to become this person, because all I want to do in life, I'll be completely honest with you, is be a good role model to my siblings, make my parents proud, and be the best husband I can possibly be. And if I have any free time alongside that, I want to try and help as many people, because I've seen my parents give that kindness. I don't expect nothing else. So it's very easy for me to live that life of happiness, which to some people may seem really, really strange, but I've had those exercises with myself. So the question I suppose I want to ask you is, we spoke earlier in the show about how you were broken and then you had to go through this transition to get to where you are, to find happiness. And I truly believe habits are really, really important here. They're the key, they're the foundation, especially like keystone habits as well. What kind of stuff did you, when you went through that process, start to implement on your daily basis to bring you to where you are now? I know you briefly mentioned the exercise as well, so you can elaborate on that to make you who you are today. Because I know, and we've had conversations, that there's a sense of, almost like a sense of pride in terms of the person you are now, and a sense of happiness because you are who you say you are. And we speak about authenticity, and you can only see that when somebody's truly living their happy life, in my opinion. Otherwise, it just becomes a buzzword. People just say it to get the likes. But what you're doing is you've acknowledged your flaws, and now you're in a place where you could have probably earned more money if you stayed in this. But actually, now you're focusing on the happiness, which is where I want the guest to go.
Yeah. So at that time, just to give you sort of a brief picture of the moment, and that moment was waking up in the morning, crying. That night, I was going through, a lot of evenings, a lot of times I was going to sleep. So I'd go to sleep at like 12, 1 o'clock, and by 3 o'clock I was awake, but I was awake in my thoughts. And those thoughts were just vortexes of, how much money I owed, how many suppliers I had to, and it was almost like how many people were on my back. And it was just like suppliers, the banks, the wages, there was just so much that was just going through, and all the thoughts, because it was the same energy that I was putting into the thoughts, those vortexes. And I know it was depression at this point, but I didn't know at that point. And I would stay awake literally in a sweat, and it would be a case of, okay, so if I don't do this, this is not going to happen, this is not going to happen, this won't happen, this won't happen, and it would always end up in we're homeless or I die. And it just doesn't make sense, like when I say it out loud, but at that point it was real. And because I was not very good at communicating, I thought the energy I was putting into those thoughts is the only energy that I was putting into. So it's when Einstein said, you can't solve a problem with the same energy that created it. And all I was doing was using the same energy trying to solve the same problem. And it was just getting worse and worse and worse. So I woke up one morning, and this is after weeks and months of being in this process. And that's why, because not sleeping and just being tired and then trying to work full on all day, it was just, I was broken at that point. And I got up and I was crying and I said to my wife, I can't do this. And she said, now it's time to make changes. You don't have a choice to give up. You have a choice to make a change. And that change starts today. And unless it starts today, it's not going to happen. And I don't care if it's a Tuesday, you don't wait till Monday, you start today. And then at that point, I started listening. The first time I started listening. And what I mean by listening is that not just to her, but online. So there's so many good, talks and teachers. And when they say, when the student is ready, the teachers turn up. And it is so true. I was ready to listen then. And before that, because I wasn't listening, no matter what anyone said to me, I knew the answer. I knew what was right. Until then, I knew actually I don't know now. Started listening. And why I listened to people on YouTube. So there was like Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins, Mind Valley, Les Brown. So these were people that were just speaking positivity, trying to change, saying where they'd been and move forward. And a couple of threads kept coming through. And this is after, and I became a zombie in my own house. So I'd walk around with Bluetooth headphones on with stuff on all the time. And it sounds really alien, but my kids will tell you, it's almost like my daughter, she was young then, but my wife was like, you were like a zombie. Because even when we were in the same room, you'd have headphones on, you'd be listening. Because I knew something's happening, there's some changes happening, but I'm hearing all the same threads from different people in different ways, but they were essentially these three things. First of all, stop, change your state to change your mind or something like that, which was you need to start moving. At that point, I play a little bit of football, but that was it. There was no real physical activity. So I said, okay, so the first thing I need to do is start moving. So I left my house next morning. This is after, probably a month of listening. Okay, so this was a Wednesday and I got up next day and I said, okay, I'm going to go for a walk. At this point, I was struggling to get up at 8 o'clock. So I said, I'm going to get up at 7:30 and I'm going to go for a walk. Well, go for a run. I'm going to go for a 4-mile run. That was the aim. Now I know how stupid that was. But anyway, yeah. And I got up and I was like, I couldn't even get out of bed because I was so tired. But I got up and I was like a zombie, just putting my thing. I can't find my trainers. Where's my t-shirt? Where's my shorts? Eventually got out of the house like an hour later or something. Went for a run and I literally ran to the next tree and I gave up. And I was like, maybe this plan wasn't that great, but I'm going to rethink again. So next day, I put all my clothes ready next to the bed. So I knew when I'm going to get up and leave, I'm not thinking about that. So it's again, one hurdle that I'm not thinking about. So I literally half asleep, put my trainers on, put my thing, and said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk and jog between trees. And that slowly then became a jog, and that slowly became longer, and that slowly became, but it wasn't every morning thing. It was when they say, a non-negotiable. I had to do it every morning because I knew this would change. Even though I hated it, I hated getting up in the morning and I hated that feeling. But I knew if all these people are saying the same thing, it can't be wrong because they've all changed their life. It can't be wrong. So I have to blindly follow and see how it makes me feel. Few months into that, like few years into that just the running side of it, I said, and I think we talked about this, I said, that's it. I'm not doing running anymore. 2 years in, I said, I hate this. I've been doing it and I know it makes me feel good and all that, but I was so in my head that I said, I don't want to do this anymore. And then 2 days later, I said, actually, I miss running. I miss that feeling that I was getting from running. And as soon as that happened, everything changed. And when you change your perspective of something, everything changes. Then because I started thinking, okay, so this is what I'm missing out on and this is what I'm enjoying. Now I'm training, 6 years on, 8 years on, and I'm training for the New York Marathon next year. And I love it. It's my time to be with myself. I have meetings with myself while I'm running, so I don't really run with music and stuff. And I just listen to myself and it makes me feel human again. And the chemical imbalances in my brain that were happening at that time no longer happen because this running sorts all that out and I come back alive and it makes me feel good. And I know how it makes me feel. That's why it's a non-negotiable still. I only do sort of 2 or 3 times a week now and I'm up to, 16 to 20 miles every run. And that's a short run for me. And because I know how it saved my life and I know how it's helped me. That was one thing. The other thing was nutrition. Luckily, my wife is a nutritionist. She's a fitness expert. And she went into the whole nutrition. Okay, how am I eating, what are you eating, what time are you eating, what's good for you, what's good. I didn't even know what protein and carb was. I used to just eat like, it's bread, what more. And it's understanding that in the morning. Now I'm on 2 meals a day because I listen to my body. I don't really eat in the morning because I don't need to. I just drink water. In the afternoon and evening, I have a big meal, and that works for me. I know the feeling in my body, and I come to trust that feeling. I don't listen. Even when people say do this, no, this works for me. And then, therefore, if we have an evening out and we go out for a meal, next day, I say, oh no, I'll take it easy. I might not even really need lunch because I probably got the slowest metabolic rate ever of any human being because I really don't even get hungry. But then I'll be like, I'm fine. I listen to my body. I'm actually hungry. Just because it says 12 o'clock on the clock doesn't mean I have to eat lunch. It means that, do I need to? No, I don't. So I'll miss that. I'm good. Or I'll have a little snack. I'm good with that. So it's again, listening, being in tune with my body. If I don't drink water, I get a little headache here, right in the front of my brain. And I know actually that's come because you've not drank enough water today. So drink some water. So listen, your body speaks in its own language and you have to listen to that. You have to feel that. And the third thing was mind. Mind again, after listening, I need to start concentrating on slowing down and becoming silent and being comfortable being silent with myself and being with my thoughts, because it was about retraining my thoughts and about trying to be start controlling how this was going. You can't control it fully, but you can be in management. So going to the meditation, going Buddhist center to learn meditation, learning yoga, and learning more mindful stuff and becoming aware and make it a practice. It's not there's no end result, there's no end game. It's just a journey for me. And I know every night 10 meditation before I go to sleep, perfect. I wake up fresh and everything. And I know if I don't do it, I don't. So those three threads were, the mindset, the mind work, the body work, and the movement. And they were the three things that have saved my life. And that's why every morning now, so I'll just give you my routine. It's quite anal, but I'll explain it anyway. At 5 o'clock, I get up. 5 to 5:45, I'll make lunch for both me and my wife. So we make salad, protein, etc. Because I want to have a nutritious, healthy meal in the afternoon before, because I know that works for me. 5:45 to 6:45, like I mentioned earlier, I'm writing a book. So that's when I sit down for an hour and I write. Again, my time with myself, because no one else is awake. 6:45, then kids get up, help them, and I train. Half an hour, I do some indoor training, or I go for a run, or whatever that is. I walk my son to school every morning. That's our ritual, and that's mine and his time to spend. And actually, it's just our time that we don't break. Every day it's the same. Go to school, come back, and then I sit down and play piano. So I started playing piano 3-4 years ago. And I sit down for half an hour again, no phone, no technology, just sit down and I play. And I'm getting better. And hopefully in 20 years, I might be good enough to play a song for you. But until then, I just practice, yeah. And then that's half an hour, 8:30. Then 8:30 to 9 o'clock, I do video editing. So I edit some podcasts, I do some stuff, work. And then 9:15, I then leave the house to go to work. And that's my ritual. I know that all those little facets make me strong. They're my time. It's my time in the morning, and that's why I do it early before anyone gets up, and it makes me strong. So my phone generally only comes on when I leave the house. So while I'm in the house, I don't switch on, because I'm like, if it's that important, someone will be able to contact me somehow. Otherwise, no, I don't want to be drawn away from the things that make me strong. And therefore, because it makes me strong, I stick to it. And therefore, when I leave the house, I'm the strongest I can be to handle anything that's going to happen in the day.
I was getting goosebumps as you were saying that, because there was a lot of elements of what you were saying in terms of when you were the zombie with the headphones on and you're really trying to change the narrative of your life. You were trying to move forward. Mm-hmm. I've been there. I had such a fixed mindset. I almost had that mindset that you're given a certain level of gifts and you're given, weaknesses and strengths, and that's it. You then got to live your life that way. And what I realized is actually, no, you can become good at anything over a long enough period of time if you're willing to put the work in, and you can change the way you think, the way you see stuff. Going back to right at the beginning when you were talking about the opportunities when that person come, your reticular activation system, you can change how that even happens. If you're looking for more opportunities rather than looking for more excuses, you're going to see more opportunities come your way. And again, I think your wife's fascinating by the way you speak with her, because she said something again that's really, really profound in terms of you don't have a choice to give up, you have a choice to change. I absolutely love that. It's almost like inspiration, but then also the truth. The truth is you have that control. And just having that is something that I urge so much for anyone listening to this show, that we all have the choice right now. Whatever we're going through, every single person's gone through adversity, or we're going through it, or we're about to go through it. But we still have a choice in that moment in terms of how we react, or once we overcome that, in terms of how we move forward. And the simple things you mentioned there, the three things, the nutrition, the change in your state, and allowing your mind to slow down. These are all recommendations from the successful people, and I'll put that in commas, that have been out there. Every single successful person I've come across has some form of exercise, has some form of sitting with themselves, has some form of fueling their body so they can run at optimal for the next 18 to 20 hours. And I accept that it's difficult. I probably go to the gym on average for the last 9 years. I'd say I probably work out on average 7 times a week. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. That's probably my overall average. Of those occasions, I'm being 100% transparent here, 10% of the time I'm looking forward to it. And it's normally I'm looking forward to it because I haven't been able to go because something's come my way. Then I get annoyed with myself. And then you realize the gratitude side of it, like I should be grateful that I'm going. But generally speaking, it's just become a forceful habit, because I know the benefits of it, the endorphins, how I feel about myself, how I told myself on the night I was going to do something, then I did it in the day, irrespective of when that feeling of motivation left me. Because sometimes we watch a Rocky movie, and I use this example a lot. We think we can take on the world. And the problem is we're watching that at 11 o'clock, and come in the morning, we no longer want to take on the world. We want to stay in bed in our comfort zone. And I always have this, similar to yourself, conversation with myself. And it's almost like I challenge myself, and I have a narrative of, I make up stuff in my head in terms of, right, be the man that you said you're going to be. Then when I'm doing it, I'm saying, well, nobody else is doing this. And I'm almost kind of elevating myself. Who else is here now at 5 o'clock working their arse off, trying to be a better person? Nobody, because they're all in bed. And I know there's people like you and there's people listening to the show who are doing it, but it's just a self-narrative to keep myself going. So sometimes we have to have these crazy talks with ourselves. I mean, if you got into my head, you probably wouldn't listen to another episode of Find Your Voice, because the stuff that goes on. But I absolutely love it. And I just think they're keystone habits that we can all implement. If you can't run 16 miles, try 16 steps. Try 16 minutes of walking. Just try little incremental things, and then slowly you're going to start to feel better, and you're going to realize, okay, that initial 5 minutes of feeling I can't be bothered is going to be quickly outweighed by the 15 or 20 minutes of exercise, plus the after effects as well in terms of how you feel. And just one thing before we move over to this fun part of the show, because this is a fascinating conversation. I could probably speak to you for hours, and we said this last time we spoke, but I'm just conscious of the time. Is you said something when we spoke, when I came on your podcast, which was, I think it was in relation to a conversation with your daughter, and you were speaking about how you don't label things as good or bad. I want you to kind of share that to the audience, because I just think that was such an amazing takeaway that I took away from our last conversation.
Yeah. So there's so much all of us go through where we put a label on something. So I like this or I don't like this. I like this or I don't like this, right? And that will then create your brain to believe it to be true. So then when something comes and you say, okay, I don't like walking, at the time, because you've said I don't like walking, you're almost saying to yourself, that's it, that's the only option I have. So my daughter, she was wanted to be a radio presenter, and we got her into training, and I say it's a 10-week training program. I drop you off on a Sunday between 6 and 8, and I pick you up, and you do it for 10 weeks, and then you decide whether you want to be a presenter or not. 2 weeks in, she goes, Dad, I don't want to go anymore. And I said, why? She goes, I just don't like it. I don't like the people there, the other people there. I just don't like the teacher. I just don't like anything. I said, Kaya, don't have an opinion. Don't say like or dislike. Just say it's something I just have to do. And at the end of that 10 weeks, then I have a choice to say whether I want to carry on or not. Because as soon as you say like and you say you don't like, all your brain will keep concentrating is all the things that are happening that you don't like. If there is something that you do like, your brain will say, don't look at that. Don't concentrate on that, because you've already said you don't like it. And you're always almost like a confirmation to then prove yourself right, because that's the ego again. It's the ego that you're trying to coax and you're trying to stroke, by saying, I said I didn't like it, so all the things that I don't like, all I'm seeing is that. It's like the reticular activation system, right? You keep seeing what you need to see, and you filters out everything else. So at the end of that 10 weeks, I said, so therefore you don't have a choice. So just remember that, just go to it. And at the end of the 10 weeks, we'll talk again. But until then, there is no choice. And I said, just stop thinking I like and I dislike, just do it. At the end of the 10 weeks, she said, Dad, I want to be a presenter. I love it. And I'm glad I stayed. And that, again, was confirmation to me that that label of like and dislike, and we live, it almost becomes automatic. It's like when if you ask someone, what do you want your life to be? And they'll tell you all the things they don't want. I don't want this, and I don't like this. And no, I'm not telling you what you do. And it's funny how, as human beings, we do that because it's easier to say what we don't like than what we do like, because it's almost like the fear protects us. The fear keeps us protected. So I don't like this, or I don't want this, and I know that. But how can you design your life to be the most amazing? Don't work out the plan. Don't worry how it's going to happen. Just put it out there. This is how I want my life to be. And this is what interested me about you, Aaron, when you said 5 years ago, you decided to go through a process to design your life. And I wish so many more people would do that. And the 3 letters I would say to anyone listening is PDF. It's easy to remember because everyone knows what a PDF is, but it's patience, discipline, and focus. Those 3 things I want to, I may even ask for your help on this. I want to set up a program for young people called the PDF project, where we can actually try and instill this in younger people, because they're the 3 things that, take time. And I get it. It's not like it's a judgment. I know when you're younger, you don't have the patience, you don't have the discipline or the focus. And if we can instill that into young people from an early age, this world would be an amazing place. And using the experience that I've seen, is you use the analogy of experience and not having the experience. It's like giving a 17-year-old the keys to a Ferrari. And you're talking about money as the energy. I'm talking about a car here. You give him the keys to Ferrari, he'll either kill himself or kill someone else, because you don't have the experience to drive it, you don't have the respect to drive it, and you don't have the authority to drive it because you're not in control, right? Fast forward 20 years when you buckle down and you've earned you've earned the money to buy it. You've then taken the keys because you deserve it, and now you drive it because you've got experience, and you're going to enjoy it so much more. It's the same with money. Money comes too early, that energy is going to kill you or corrupt you or somehow amplify things in you which you don't want. It's like when they say when you win the lottery, what happens to that money is it amplifies who you are already. So if you're a generous person, it makes you more generous. If you're a cruel or mean person, it makes you more mean. So the energy is there to amplify. Just always remember that anything that comes into your life, if it's turning you into something that you don't want to be, recognize that early and change it there.
Absolutely love that. And just on that last point, which I think is really, really important, and it's a mindset shift I have as well, which is that money doesn't change you, money exposes you. So I grew up with the narrative that money is the root of all evil, and people with money, they do bad things, X, Y, and Z. And we came from very, very humble beginnings. And I had to change that narrative because, again, I was being told something negative that actually wasn't the truth. But what we do is, in life, we try to find things that fit our narrative and fit our beliefs. It's just the way it is. If we believe, for example, I'll use a very quick football analogy for probably the 2 people that watch football and listen to this show, is if you have a dislike for a particular player, I promise you, when you watch that player, you're only going to count the times they've misplaced a pass or they forgot something. You're going to forget all their off the ball work or their assists or their goals. It's just, we have this bias and we continually just kind of pump into it to make ourselves and our opinions seem like they're right. And again, one of the things and one of the blessings I'm grateful that I went through is I no longer care about being right. I just want to be better. I just want to learn. I just want to grow. And if there's something I've believed for the last 15 years that somebody shows me, well, actually, you're wrong, I'm happy to take that on. I wasn't 7 years ago, but I'm most certainly happy to take that on now. So I really, really think that's such an important lesson for anyone in life in terms of we have to be in control of the way our minds work. And only we know, every one of us. I mean, listening to you is fascinating because I think we're very similar in the way that we think. So it gives me inspiration and hope because you're a few years ahead of me in the journey, but I'm thinking the same way. I'm doing the same habits. So hopefully one day I can be at the same level. but somebody else might be slightly different. So what you have to do is reframe it. Some people need tough love. Some people need an arm around their shoulder when they have that negotiation. You know the best way to negotiate with yourself. And however you do that, if it's having crazy talks with Bluetooth headphones on with yourself or running with no music, then do that. But if it's having an accountability partner, that can always help as well. I think my wife coming into my life has been one of the best things for me as a person, because she's taught me so much about the growth mindset. And, you know, mindset is everything. I truly believe that, because if I never had that mindset, just going back to my first point about the money, I would never pursue money because I always thought it was a bad thing. For me now, when I have money, what I actually do is my bills don't increase. I think, what can I do with this extra money now to either make my life easier, my parents' life easier, my wife's life easier, or can I then create something to help other people? And I think it exposes people effectively. So fantastic answer. I'm really glad we managed to share that. But conscious of time, because again, this could be a 15-hour episode. We might have to do a 24-hour marathon one day. So I want to run into the fun part of the show. So the fun part of the show is, just for anyone who's tuned in, is where I ask you random questions. I've got a list of questions here in front of me, and it's one word or one sentence answers only from yourself. Are we ready?
Okay. Yep.
Okay, what is your favorite hobby?
Piano.
The scariest thing you've ever done?
Skydive.
Your biggest mistake this year?
Not making more of the lockdown that we've just come out of, or we're still in, but we're still coming out of. I wish I did more.
Your proudest achievement?
Feeling like I'm the most interesting person I know.
Your favorite motivational speaker?
Les Brown.
If you had an extra hour a day, how would you spend it?
I'd spend it reflecting on, if it was just for the day, reflecting on the day and then putting in action points for the next day, because I don't think I spend enough time doing that.
Okay. The best lesson anyone has ever taught you?
Trust yourself, because you have all the answers. You just have to go quiet and go within and trust yourself.
If you could get the listeners to do one thing starting today, what would it be?
Find out what makes you happy and do that, because the world needs to be around happy people, because when we're around happy people, the world is a more exciting place. Sorry, that was a really long answer.
I love that, but it was one sentence, so it's okay. A lot of comments. If you could abolish one thing in the world, what would that be?
And one remember that is this wasteful mentality of a lot of people in terms of chucking stuff away and not reusing stuff, and I have a real big issue with that.
Okay. What is your favorite book?
The Dharma Effect by Simon House. It's a local author from Leicester, and I live by it. It's ultimately awesome. It's not a really big seller by anyone big, but it's huge in my life.
What are you secretly good at that nobody knows?
Focus. And what I mean by that is, if I put my mind to something, I ignore everything around me and I just make it happen. And what that be, small steps. I just try and live every day by doing something that builds me up to be the best version I can be.
If you could relive one day again, what day would that be?
Oh, my wife's going to hate this, but the Champions League final 2005 when Liverpool came from 3-0 down.
That's probably one of the worst days of my life. Okay, brilliant. So that is the end of the fun part of the show. So some great answers there, apart from the Liverpool one. As we kind of head towards the last few questions, I want to ask about reflection and legacy. So starting with reflection, I'm a firm believer that hindsight is a wonderful thing. It can teach us ways to get to where we are quicker, easier, and with less heartache. But at the same time, I believe it's that journey that's so important, because it teaches us so much as well along the way. So if you had all your wisdom now and all your knowledge, but you could maybe go back to a younger version of yourself, maybe in your teenage years, for example, or when you first started that business, what would you say?
I'd say, Bav, there's so much that's going to happen to you, and you may feel awkward in a lot of situations. You being awkward in the situations is just building you up to the person you're going to become. Don't try and ignore it. Don't try and hide from it, but be truthful. Try and be as truthful as you can to as many people as you can, because it's only the truth that shows you as a person. Now, as you go on, you won't know yourself until you reach a point later in your life. But looking back at you now, you have everything you need. You have everything you want, and you have the right mindset to grow. You just have to trust yourself, listen to the people around you. You have an awesome network of foundation in terms of people, in terms of family, in terms of friends that will always look after you. And there's always going to be a halo around you in terms of protection, because there'll never be a place you'll fall too far that you can't get up from. And the universe will only give you the lessons it knows you can handle. So just keep looking forward and just try and take a few more risks, I think. Just try and be a bit more bold and a bit more courageous with living your life, and try and do things not to try and make other people happy, that make you happy. Because if you're happy, the people that are important to you will be happy because they're around you being the happiest you can.
Absolutely. I love that, especially the last answer. And that's something that I'm very grateful I have in my natural personality. So as much as I struggle with shyness or anxiety, I also have this element of when you're in flight, fright, freeze moment, I always want to fight. So as much as it scares me to have started a podcast, for example, I'd still try it because I'm like, the end might be great. And it has been amazing. The same with YouTube, putting myself on there. I mean, talk about the worst video ever on YouTube is probably my first video. It is so cringe that I've stopped it now, so you can't actually see it. But what I am going to do is in maybe like a year or something is bring it out, and I'm going to show everyone, look, this is where I actually started. Just taking a risk on anything. The same with property. I gave up a very, very well-paid job to go to become a social worker. I then gave that up to then become a property investor pretty much full time, to now being able to do the things I do. And a lot of the blessings in my life have come from taking risks, because I think when you go through adversity, especially, at least this is my perspective, is you realize how short our lives are. I hear so many tragic stories on this podcast of somebody thinking they were fine, and then come Monday morning, they've got a tumor, for example, and they've been given 3 months to live. And I just think, what are you waiting for? Why are we waiting so long to find our voice, to start writing our own story? Do it. Just try it. Because a great exercise I always do, and I always speak about, is what's the worst that could happen? I always say Dr. Pepper it, because at the end of the day, the chances are you trying to put yourself out there on a podcast or trying to inspire people because that's what you feel your purpose is, you're not going to necessarily die from it. I mean, the odds are very, very low from that. It's not going to affect your family, which I'm sure is probably the most important thing as well. So sometimes if you can just have that mindset of what's the worst that can happen, and you accept that that's really not going to happen, we should take that risk. So yeah, sorry for rambling on there. I just think that was such a great point there. And that does segue us to the last question, which is really important. And I think yours is going to be a fantastic one. And it's about legacy. So I always ask this to all of my guests, that if in 150 years' time, science fails to save us, and all that exists is a book. Now, this book, it's about you. It's about your life. It's about all of the amazing achievements, all of your ups and all of your downs along the way. Firstly, what I want to know is, what would the title of this book be? And then secondly, what would the summary at the back tell us about you?
Okay, so the title of the book would be, I think for me, it would be Thinking It Real. And what I mean by that is our thoughts are so powerful and it creates the world that we live in. And I believe that so strongly, that we have to understand that we as human beings have such a ability to put action behind the thought and bring it out in the world. Everything we see, the most powerful statement I've ever heard is, everything you see that's around us that's not natural, that's man-made, started as a thought and it came out in the world. The biggest buildings to the smallest nanotechnology started in a thought, and we brought it out into the world. And that is, I live my life by that, in terms of what actions can I put behind my thoughts to bring something out into the world and build the life and build the universe that I want to see. This world for me is not about the whole world. It's about my world, and my world are the people around me and the things that surround me and my perspective on things. And therefore, if I can be the best version I can of myself, then I can be the best version of myself for those people around me, and I build the universe that I want to see and the world that I want to see, because it's all the perspective that I put out there. The back of the book would read, we are all individual selves. First of all, we are blessed to be here. The chances of us being here are so remote and so minuscule that it's almost impossible that we're here. So we have to be here. We have to have the faith that we're here for a reason and we're here for a purpose. Whether we know that or not, we've already won, the battle of 400 million sperm to be here. We've already won the battle of if you think about every generation that's come behind us, 50 generations, do you think how many people had to meet and procreate down that pyramid to get to you? It's almost impossible that we're here. So therefore, make the most of this life, because we, being the cells in the symbiotic system called the universe, we all are cells that need to be strong, for not just for ourselves, but for the whole system to work. And if we're strong, then we are strong for everyone around us, but also we're strong for ourselves. And when we're strong for ourselves, we then shine. And when we shine our light bright, we shine for all the people around us so they can shine their light bright for their people. So have the faith, have the courage to live your best life. And at the end of it, look back and say, I love that. It was a fantastic journey. And I'm looking forward to the next journey because it will just carry on from there.
I love that. If I could drop this mic without damaging it, I would have done that right there. Just before I give the audience a chance to connect with you and you share all your socials, and obviously I urge people to follow the podcast as well, because you're going to get more of an insight in terms of you as a person. There's some fantastic guests on there as well. We've actually got an ex-fellow Find Your Voice guest who's also featured on that as well. So I definitely urge people to move over to that and show some love. Are there any questions that you wish I had asked you today, or any final messages you want to leave with the audience?
I think I've always trusted in the conversations leading the way it's meant to lead. And I think all the things that we've talked about, hopefully there is something there that someone can take away. And it's not just listening to the information and then saying, oh, that was good, and doing nothing about it, but try and put even one thing into action, because that one decision you make today, you'll look back in 10 years' time and say, I'm so glad I made that decision because my life has changed exponentially just by that one little shift or that one little change. One thing I think gets a really bad rep is struggle. And what I mean by that is when something comes too easy, I believe that there's no value in it. The value is in the struggle. It's a thing where you have to try and figure shit out to try and move forward. It's when I was young, we had to, when we wanted to learn something, we had to go to the library, or we had to go to somewhere or do something. Or if we had to go and find a friend, we had to go and run to his house and find him. Now it's literally a quick message, right? And that struggle is where the value was for me. And it still is. When something is going to take, it's like playing the piano when I said 20 years. I know it's going to take time. Let it take time, because at the end of that journey, you're going to be like, I'm so glad I went through that. Or the hardship, I look back at the time when I was broken, crying on my bed as the best time, because it created the version you see in front of you today. So that struggle and that hardship, it was tough, and the universe will only give you lessons which it knows you can handle. So don't try and shy away from it. Just handle it head on. Go through the struggle, and then know on the other side of that there's going to be so much a better version of you on the other side. So don't try and duck it. Don't try and have an easy life. Try and go through a few struggles, because I'm sure it will help you as a person as well.
Absolutely love that. I love that. I tweeted a quote the other day about the shortcut to success is doing the hard things that you're putting off effectively. And you literally said that amazingly there. You articulated it much better and elaborated on it, because so often in life, we're not willing to go through that. But I can't explain that all the great things that have come through my life have come through the struggle, have come through adversity, or on the other side. Even if it's something really horrific, actually it's given me a different perspective to now not waste my life. I've wasted a lot of years. I sometimes kick myself, but then I remember I need to be kind to myself of so many years of wasted potential. Just getting by, just going to work and making sure when the manager comes, I've got my laptop on, but then I'm on Sky Sports and placing bets and just doing the most random, silly things. And I kick myself because I'm like, I could be further along the journey. But again, this is why I try and openly share all my thoughts and my perspectives. And I understand some people may have to go through the same life as myself, but I want people to get to places quicker than myself and be better than myself. I truly want that, because one thing I realize is that takes nothing away from my life. If everyone listening to this becomes a lot more successful 10 years before me, brilliant. I can still have my own level of success as well. And I think if we have that mindset,
the river's big enough for all of us to drink out of, and that's the truth. Absolutely,
all of us to shine. And you said a beautiful thing earlier as well about, the world needs more happier people. And, that's all I'm trying to do from this. Honestly, it's been such a fascinating story. Again, I don't want to keep rambling. I want people to connect with you now. I want people to follow your podcast and get an insight into your life as well. So where's the best place that somebody can follow your journey or learn more about yourself?
Yeah. So like I said, we talked about the podcast, Bigger Than the Hustle. That's there, and that will continue to be there. I'm sure Aaron will hook up my sort of Instagram or Facebook. Generally, I'm sort of more LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook. I'll dabble in all three, but they don't dictate my life. So if you want to see some stuff I'm doing, it's on there. And there's some new podcasts I'm going to be starting next year, which Aaron will be on as well, which he doesn't know about.
Thank you. I can prepare myself over the winter. But absolutely, what I will do is I'll put all of that stuff in the show notes, as I do all the time, just to make people's lives easier as well. I definitely think there is so much more that we could have covered. I mean, I was writing notes. I've probably got another 15 questions, but maybe we can do a part 2 later on as well.
Yeah,
just in terms, because I think one thing that we've both done that's very similar is recognize our life wasn't going the way that we wanted it. We recognize some level of dissatisfaction. We recognize to come out of that dissatisfaction was going to be tough and difficult, but we did it. We didn't just accept that and then wait till we were 65 and then moan about how our life was, miserable. We're trying to actively change that. And that's all I want from anyone listening to this show. Bhavik, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And for everyone else at home, thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Aaron. That was brilliant.
And remember, this podcast is absolutely free. So all we ask in return is for you to share this with a friend and drop us a 5-star review over on iTunes. Have an awesome day.